The Tortilla Española has only 5 ingredients. I use jumbo white eggs, finely chopped sweet Vidalia onions, Yukon Gold potatoes, extra virgin olive oil, and salt. I start by cooking the finely chopped Vidalia onions in a pan over medium heat, adding a little bit of salt to bring out some of the moisture, and I cook them until they caramelize and become translucent and kind of a sweet pudding of onion. But the longer you cook them, the more the sugars inside of the onions will caramelize. Don't put it over high heat. I have this over like medium low heat. It takes longer to cook, but it'll be beneficial in the end. It won't be any crunch to the onions. The idea is that you want them to be soft. You don't want any crunch to be in any of the onions while you're eating the tortilla. Everybody makes it a little bit differently. I take a little bit more time because I like it to be everything smooth. But you can see in here, the browning is the caramelization. There's a lot of olive oil. I'm going to add the potatoes here in a minute. I'll add a little bit more oil because the potatoes are dry and they'll soak up a lot of this oil. It's about 5 Yukon Gold potatoes. I like Yukon Gold. They're a little bit stickier and they'll kind of make a big homogeneous mass here a little bit better than other potatoes will. A lot of people use them raw and put them in. I like to boil mine like home fries and then cut them up like this. It just makes them a lot more smoother when you're eating it. I don't like chunks in my tortilla. So I'm gonna just put this on top, turn down the heat a little bit, and then just start kind of chopping and stirring these in. Eventually, you don't want this to be this could be just like some good home fries in about a minute here. But I want to keep mixing and chopping, and eventually I'm going to make kind of like mashed potatoes before I add the last ingredient, which is the egg. So I'm going to chop these up and then put the cover back on and let some of the steam break down the potatoes a little bit. And you see the chunks are getting a little bit smaller. You can see that the onion's really starting to incorporate and homogenize a bit with the potato. So this is a consistency that I like. There's very few chunks. I can see that it's starting to all stick together in one mass. I can see a lot of brown in here, the caramelization, a little bit more of the onions and the potato. I can see when I do this, there's not too much oil down here, so it's not going to spill out on me when I flip this. So I'm going to kind of even everything out right now and turn the heat off. Let it sit for a second, because I'm going to add the egg. If you add egg to a hot skillet, it'll immediately start to cook. I don't want the egg to cook on the outside. I want it to become part of this. So I make like these little channels in here, and I turn the heat off, so when I pour the egg in here in a second, I can easily mix it in. I use 3 jumbo eggs, and I beat them as you would when you make an omelet to make a consistent egg mix to mix in with the rest of the potatoes to make the tortilla. So now I'm just going to dump that on top. And with the heat off, just slowly but evenly mix that in so it's just one kind of dough that we're making. I don't want to have any kind of one spot that's eggier than the next. I don't want the outside to be eggier than the inside. You can see as I'm starting to flip this that you can start seeing some white from the egg. And I'm going to do this with the heat off until it firms up just a little bit. And then I'll turn the heat back on low or medium to let it firm up some more. When it's firmed up enough that I can flip it, I will to cook the other side. So I'm going to leave this to cook covered for a few minutes. And then after a few minutes, I'm going to take the lid off and kind of go around with the spatula to round out the edges of the tortilla while it's still firming up. You got to be very careful to keep the heat on really just medium to low so it doesn't burn. This is, after all, egg on the outside, and it'll burn very quickly. I can see it's starting to firm up, so I'm going to take this. I like this plastic, long, flexible spatula. What I'll do is kind of turn it around and run it along the outside like this. Not only does it get the tortilla away from the sides, but it also helps to kind of round out the edges. It lets some of that heat out from the bottom. Also give it a little bit of a shake too. I can see that it's sticking here on this side a little bit, so I'll try to get up underneath of it a little bit with the spatula. A little bit of a shake. And if it's sticking too much, even though this is a really good non-stick pan, let me just dab a little bit of oil in that one crack. And then cover it back up for a minute. It's about firm enough. It's all moving. It's still a little bit of jiggling, but that's why we do cook both sides. I might have put a little bit too much oil down in here. I can see it's bubbling up, and so there's a pretty good chance it's going to burn my wrist when I flip it, but it's all worth the sacrifice for the tortilla. I also like how it's coming away from the sides and it's getting nice and rounded. Okay, so this is la hora de la verdad. A lot of times in Spain they have like a special double-sided skillet that locks here, and mine was getting pretty old, so I'm going to go the old-fashioned way of just using a plate. So and then you're going to turn the heat off here, and so you can't hesitate. I'm just going to set this down, firmly put my hand on it, and I say it without hesitation. Just take this and flip it. Okay. That's pretty common, that little bit of burnt egg that's in there. I'm going to set that down for now. Alright, so now I've got it here, and I want to just get it to slide back in the pan. Give it a few shakes, turn the heat back on, and I'll cook it slowly until it firms up all around. And just go wash this. Okay, so now that I've flipped it and I shake it now, you can see it moves as one substance. I'm going to do this a little bit to even it out. It got scrunched up a little bit in the flip. But the same idea, I'm going to keep going around to kind of round out the edges. And now that I took that little kind of crusted, burn-on pieces of egg off the bottom, it moves a lot more smoothly. Again, I want to kind of keep the flame low to medium, maybe even lower than it is right now. It's moving all together. And I can kind of smell, too, that it's getting a little bit hot and moments away from burning. I've turned off the heat now completely. And like before, I'm going to put the plate on very carefully. This time it should flip much easier. So pick it up and just in one flip without hesitating. And that's a finished Tortilla Española.